Um, Adam, I'll start the meeting and then you've got the screen, right? Okay. Um, Everyone, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, I forgot
And
my.
if Wes, if you would lead us off, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
United
of
States of
America,
America,
to the republic,
for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
God,
indivisible,
individual, with liberty and
and
justice
justice
for all. Okay. At this time, I would just, for the sake of the public audience, what our procedures will be this evening. We will start off with reading the agenda. Then Mr. Paul will give us a brief overview of the projects that we'll be discussing this evening and presenting. We will then have a presentation from the presenter, and then I will open it up to the public for comments. And during this period, we would ask that you raise your hand and Mr. Paul will be able to see you virtually. And we will see if we can allow you to talk, hopefully for about 3 minutes. And then we will get everyone who's wanting to talk through that process. Then I will close it to the public, open it up to the Planning Commission, and we will get comments from the Planning Commission. And then we will have possibly some motions, etc. We will discuss previous minutes, and then that will be the end of our session. So with that, Mr. Paul, if you could show the agenda, and if you would, Mr. Habel, if you could read the agenda into the minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Monaco. I can do that. Okay, the agenda for today, under new business, we actually have election of officers for 2021, election of officers. And then the items on the agenda, item number FMP-21-00008, section 1113.04, final plat, owner applicant, 5008 State Road, LLC is applied for final plat approval for the ledges of Pine Ridge subdivision. The project proposes development of a single roadway terminated by a cul-de-sac and associated public right-of-way and open space for construction of 49 single-family attached dwellings on a 12.3 acre site. Next item would be TXT-21-00012, which is section 113.06 text amendments. The city is proposing a text amendment that allows for vehicle wash / detailing in MU3 suburban center districts and MU5 urban center districts. The text amendment involves the addition of conditional use symbols in the MU3 and MU5 columns in table 1131-1 zoning districts and uses. Currently, vehicle wash detailing are allowed by conditional use in MU4 suburban corridors, C1 general districts, E1 employment districts, and M1 manufacturing districts. And the last item would be review of the minutes from January 5th, 2021.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Monaco?
Thank you, Commissioner Habel. Okay, it seems that our very first task before we get into other items on the agenda will be election of officers. And with that, I would like to start off by nominating Dan Rice for chairman. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Very good. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, Dan, I know you're not with us, but thank you so much for being chairman again. That's what happens when you're not here. But Dan has been a great chairman and very thankful. Hopefully he will continue. The next is office of vice chair. Any suggestions?
I nominate Ed Monaco.
Okay, is there
I
a second?
second.
All right, second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay,
Who
Monaco.
seconded that? Was it Jake?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ed Monaco is vice chair. I would like to nominate for secretary Sandy Locascio. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Sandy, thank you so much. You were a great secretary. We love having you again. Okay, that will close the election of officers. And at this point, I would like to turn the meeting over to Mr. Paul to give us a presentation on the first item on our agenda, FMP 21-00008.
Okay, thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Paul. I'm with the Planning Division in the City of Cuyahoga Falls. As stated, we're here for our Planning Commission meeting. First item on the agenda concerns a final plat application. The project file is FMP-21-00008. Owner applicant, as stated in the agenda, you'll see the same thing in our application abstract here. For a project proposing development of a single roadway terminated by a cul-de-sac and associated public right-of-way and open space for construction of 49 single-family attached dwellings on 12.3 acres. This site is located on the west side of State Road, immediately north of the Hidden Lakes development and on the Boston Township Corporation line. The existing zoning is now R5 mixed density residential. That was, of course, amended from the mixed use 1 district that it held before. Excuse me. The applicant's representative is here this evening, Mr. Modick. Everyone should be familiar with him at this point. He's representing the development company and can speak to the engineering design and all other aspects. He's been here throughout the process and has worked with the city on a number of things, including a good job in corresponding about this project. What you see here in figure 1 is the zoning map. That shows you what is starred where that would be, as I said, the former mixed use 1 district, which is now R5. Mixed density residential. So on page 2, I just went down and I should say much of what was produced in this staff report with consent of the previous author was republished from much of the preliminary plat application staff report. So some of it may look familiar. And part of that is because really at this stage of the development review process, we're looking for continuity, having addressed any issues that the Planning Commission felt was necessary to correct, amend, or alter in some way, something that might not have been code compliant, some things that staff needed worked on just to meet all of the guidelines to get this application before you. And so generally that's what we're seeing here. This is just the next step. But I wanted to provide a look back at what was then the proposed preliminary plat to show you. In general, you can see that with what's now before you tonight for the final plat. And again, this just kind of gets into that next level of detail and review that gets submitted and shows you that it's in keeping with what the preliminary plan that you all reviewed and recommended for approval was. Moving on to page 3 of the staff report here. As we do with all these projects, they're routed to several city departments. And we had number of comments from the engineering department. Mr. Demasi is with us here this evening, and I can let you know what he said at the time he had reviewed that project, and then we had some updated items that were addressed by the applicant in response to those. He stated that wetland delineation shall be submitted to ACOE with jurisdictional determination issued and mitigation credits paid for if required prior to any grading. Another comment, according to USGS stream stats, the streams located on this property may be type 2 in accordance with chapter 1125. Please verify drainage areas for streams and buffers. This item is a comment that I've added, that this item was provided by the applicant and confirmed by the city engineer, see Exhibit A of the packet. And so we attached some additional detail they provided that helped define what those specific drainage areas were, because it had come up in a concern. And so I wanted to leave the comment in there just so you're aware, and so that the public is aware that the city is reviewing and addressing these areas of concern, and that they are being correctly provided when they need to be clarified. Next comment, need confirmation from Summit County that sanitary sewer from this property can be provided and collected by Cuyahoga Falls Sewer System, and request a warrant analysis to see if right turn lane is warranted for southbound traffic. To that, we do have another response from planning staff that the applicant has provided a mock-up showing available right-of-way on State Road at the development entrance, allowing for a deceleration lane, and see Exhibit B of the packet. And so that was just another attachment that was provided with this application and supporting documents, because they did have that prepared based on that comment. Another comment from the engineering department was that we need confirmation for easement for sanitary sewer extension to Hidden Hollow Court. I kind of collected that in the previous Summit County sewer comment into this response that we did receive from Mr. Modick, that regarding the sanitary sewers, Summit County is in the process of preparing the paperwork, agreeing to the property being served by gravity to the Hidden Lakes pump station. The easement has been agreed to by the adjacent property owner, and they were meeting at that time last Friday for signature, as he had been out of town at the time. So if you have additional comments or questions regarding that item, Mr. Modick can help address those tonight. The proposed pavement section does not meet city standards for concrete pavement. We will provide design engineering the correct city standard to use, and some of these are typical items that should come up in review and do get looked at in a more detailed stage after this. So it's not always necessarily a final plat item that needs to be addressed, but it does help to maintain a consistency throughout the process if these things get identified and communicated to the applicant. And lastly, he said the easement lines need depicted on the final plat, and property line bearings and distances need to be clarified. Following that, we did have a comment from Tom Carreno of the fire department. The cul-de-sac needs to be a 96-foot radius. And then the rest of the departmental listings here with leaders show you just as to whether or not they confirmed a review and or had any comment, and we had no more comments provided for this application. So moving on to more of what the planning division helps look at, we'll get into this review criteria. And this criteria is all taken directly from our code. So a final plat shall be reviewed according to the following criteria: whether the proposed land division is in accordance with the general development characteristics and policies of the general plan and any other plan or program of the city adopted under the general guidance of the general plan. The property was recently rezoned from MU1 rural, which is a mixed use designation, to R5 mixed density. We define the R5 as an urban residential district integrated into other mixed use urban environments and buffering low density neighborhoods from busy corridors, characterized by a range of dwelling types, smaller lots, and high pedestrian connectivity. R5 allows for detached single-family, attached single-family, and multifamily structures. The proposed subdivision therefore is in accordance with density requirements, development characteristics, and general plan policies. Number 2 of our review criteria, whether the proposed land division is in accordance with the general development patterns and character of the planning area in which it is located. The proposed final plat is consistent with the general development patterns in Hidden Lake and the mixed density designations in the area, and consistent with the preliminary plat. And again, that just gets back to how we go through these processes. maintaining the consistency of what you reviewed and made decisions based on. And I think thus far we're seeing that here. Hidden Lakes and Boulder Estates have been developed in the Thompson Square District, and Salt Creek has been developed in the Thompson Park neighborhood. These developments have created 468 mixed density housing units, approximately $117 million investment since 2005. And that, of course, is a republication of one of Mr. Guerra's comments from the preliminary plat stage. And it's just to help you, again, maintain that continuity of what our planning documents and the preliminary plat review and information called for. So we're still seeing the same thing here. Number 3, whether the proposed land division is in the interest of the public health, safety, and welfare. The proposed subdivision will allow for a $10 million attached single-family residential development project on a dormant R5 zoned property. The proposed subdivision is also harmonious with adjacent subdivisions and adjacent MU1 zoning. And that just gets back to where those districts should be aligned and what sizes. And this fits within that in terms of what our planning documents call for. Number 4, whether all parcels, including any proposed development, are in conformance with requirements of the zoning ordinance and zoning for the subject property, or where an alternative zoning is proposed in association with the preliminary plat, would be in conformance with the standards of the proposed zoning. We know that, we dealt with that in the preliminary stage. That is the language from the final plat stage, not to confuse you. The proposed parcels conform to low density single family attached lots, which are allowed in R5 districts, and that can be confirmed in table 1132-2 residential lot and design standards. The low density single family attached minimum front setback is 20 feet, whereas the proposed final plat shows a front setback of 15 feet. And staff comment to that is that the final plat should be amended to show the minimum 20-foot front setback. This is just a small cutout, a depiction of lots on the south side of the road from the final plat. And that illustrates the build line there at 15 feet, and we'd like to see that at 20. And it shows you that the lots at those widths, depths, and amount of area would conform to the code. Moving on to page 5 of the staff report here. Review criteria number 5, whether the application is in conformance with the standards of the subdivision regulations. Subdivision regulations are found in Title II of the General Development Code and have a lot of very detailed information about what the public infrastructure and other requirements are for constructing new roadways and developing in the city. And part of that starts here at the street network. Street name must be amended. That was not corrected between the preliminary and final plat stages. And that's because the name could be confused with the legend lanes at the nearby bowling alley potentially. And so I've just noted that this item still needs addressed and must be amended on the final plat prior to recording with the county. So keeping in mind that if these parcels don't become real and this right of way is not dedicated and accepted and all of those things don't finally get confirmed in their end forms until it's been recorded with Summit County to create the parcels. Item B of the street network review item. The proposed street meets the local 50 local rural street type. The 4-foot sidewalk from the preliminary plat was corrected to 5 foot. However, sidewalks are required on both sides of the public street and they're shown on only one. And this just again goes back to a preliminary suggestion that the proposed sidewalk could be expanded to an 8-foot wide multi-purpose trail on one side if they do need to keep it at one. And that could still be compliant with that street standard. In addition, the street should be 22 feet wide with additional road curbs. And that was, again, a comment maintained from before. That's to help carry it through to, when we've got full improvement drawings and things to review that all these things stay consistent. And what we provided here was an image of the cross-section they showed. 112303 block sizes, disconnected streets. There are no provisions for future road connections to adjacent parcels. Future road connections are limited because of natural features. The topography there is very steep. I'm sure some of you have seen the site in its current state and you can get a much better idea of that now. And then, there are streams there as well. And so those things are probably contributing factors to how it remained undeveloped to this point, because it was so difficult to make those connections and to extend infrastructure in that way. 1124 infrastructure. Oh, excuse me, I need to back up to a cul-de-sac is proposed because there's no viable road connections. And then to address 1123.04 lots, the proposed driveways do not meet 40-foot separation requirements. And that comes from, again, these same design guidelines. And that's to say that from the center of each drive entrance in a typical residential neighborhood, our code calls for a minimum separation distance of 40 feet between those. You can find nonconformities of that throughout various areas of the city. And this style of development would also require relief from that specific section of code. Regarding the infrastructure, new infrastructure is being extended for this development. Water is being supplied by Cuyahoga Falls. Sanitary sewer lines are being extended by Summit County. Electric is being supplied by the city, and storm sewer requirements are meeting our standards, which also, as you know, and city engineer can attest to, have been increased over the last year to 15 to 18 months or so to one of, if not the highest standard in the area. And that's a good thing. Offsite infrastructure improvements may be required for trail or sidewalk connections. And that too is typical of all developments. 1125 stream corridor. Stream corridor standards are displayed with a 30-foot buffer established by classification as a type 1 stream with the drainage area provided and confirmed. Open space. This calculation was carried over. It probably could have changed slightly in terms of exact percentages or acreages. If we have additional questions or need more information, I'm sure Mr. Moda can address it. We say here that 6.8 acres would be open space of the subdivision. Site design characteristics, those are in 1142, our residential neighborhood design. Residential design is regulated by this chapter. Details specific to unit design, including finished materials, will all get provided as units come through for construction. Landscape design, and we would confirm those things. We've actually put a final comment in this report as a recommendation, as we have with numerous others, particularly of this type that have recently come before you. And so you'll see that in the recommendations. Landscape design, landscape buffering on state road and retention basins shall meet heavy screening requirements at a minimum. That too is a fairly standard type of item that we would include. Number 6, whether the final plat complies with the approved preliminary plat, including satisfaction of any conditions under which preliminary approval is granted. The final plat generally complies with the approved preliminary plat, but omitted certain conditions required, such as changing of the street name. So outstanding information or corrections are largely looked at by staff as administrative in nature and can be reviewed and approved internally prior to recording of the final plat. So again, we can have those things looked at and confirmed as they need to be just before it becomes that final document that's recorded with Summit County. Number 7, whether any deviations proposed from the preliminary plat are A, the minimum deviation to fulfill the development concept and approved in the preliminary plat, B, necessary because of site conditions that could not have reasonably discovered at the preliminary stage, and C, in conformance with all other criteria for approval. The final plat generally complies, and any associated changes would be considered the minimum deviation from the preliminary plat. So in conclusion, and for a recommendation on this item from staff, based on the final subdivision plat documents, the planning division finds that project FMP-21-00008 meets the Cuyahoga Falls General Development Code final subdivision plat approval criteria and is recommending approval of the Ledges of Pine Ridge final subdivision plat with the following stipulations required for internal review and confirmation prior to recording of the plat. I would say, let's give me relief from reading those for the time being, because if you get to the point of a motion, they will be considered. They're available on request from our office should we need to go through them. But given that we've got 17 different items here and several of them are detailed to a point that presumably would take more than we need to. We can stop at this point with the report. I can address any questions or look into those specifically if you do request that of me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Okay, at this time, we will close the presentation portion of the meeting. And I'd like to open it up to the applicant, Mr. Modick. And if he would be so kind as to speak to us a little bit about the project. If you would, Greg.
Yes, thank you very much for your time. Greg Modick, 10474 Broadview Road, Broadview Heights, Ohio. Thank you for the time this evening. We've put together quite a detailed package from last time around to try and incorporate everything. Obviously, my biggest glaring mistake was that road name. We talked about that, and I missed getting that info to our civil engineer on these. So what I'll do with regards to that is get a couple names over to Adam to confirm, nothing conflicts with other street names, and we will certainly get that rectified. Couple things that I wanted to point out there that were brought up. The wetlands delineation and the letter from Summit County Sanitary. We're working with both entities. Things are just unfortunately running a bit slower here, but we've been through the process on the delineation and we're waiting for that as well as the permit. And, certainly won't do any grading until that's in hand. Summit County Sanitary. I know Tony is on the call and has had some dialogue with them as well. My perception is that there's paperwork to be done, but we've been talking with the Summit County Sanitary Engineer's Office regarding that. The easements, I met with the residents on Friday. The notary was needed, so we're reaching back out to them today, trying to capture those easements going out to Hidden Hollow Lane, so that'll be forthcoming. There are a couple things I actually wanted to clarify. The fire department comments were that it was a 96-foot radius for the cul-de-sac. I don't know if that's possibly Tony or Adam might be able to speak to that, but I just wanted to, maybe that's not part of the approval tonight, but certainly something I need to work through with my detail engineering. I think that's probably a 96-foot diameter or maybe a 46-foot radius. I'm not 100% sure, but 96-foot radius is, I think, incorrect possibly. I did want to ask two items, which would be the number 4, the building line, the minimum of 20-foot setback. Our preliminary had showed 15. I think we were looking at it more of the standard lot, which would have allowed for the 15-foot setback, if I'm not mistaken. And that's how we had designed that. The thought process behind it is we've talked through this here. It's the streams, so everything's kind of pinched in on the north side and south side. So I guess the question I would have for that is Adam, is a 20-foot required by code? If I'm trying to go 15, does that create a variance? I can certainly look at the plan and try and rectify it to 20 if at all possible. I think I can, but just wanted to understand kind of that comment there. As it said, with the 15 being on the preliminary plan, that's how we proceeded with everything. And I just don't know, looking at the charts, if that was my misinterpretation originally when I was looking at the 15, or if there's a different way to potentially look at that, as these are going to set the final standards here. The other item was number 6 with regards to $1,200 fee for the recreation. I thought I recalled that was actually a $600 fee, and that at Sycamore, I know we advanced that further. I don't know if that became the new standard within the city, so I was just looking for clarification on that. What I will say is, yes, trees are down now. We've talked to a couple of neighbors. I'm welcome to feedback from others too, but our plan with regards to screening, not only on the pond, but on the perimeter as well too, is to kind of see where we're at. We understand the heavy screening requirements of the code, and as stated in here, those are a minimum, and we truly look at those as a minimum. We're prepared to, gather the feedback from the neighbors and the city, kind of see what we get once we're out there. Now the trees are down and the land gets reshaped, and make sure we place those trees, strategically in the best way to provide the proper screening. Big item, I know there was a topic of conversation previously, was a traffic study. We are working with the city and the traffic engineer as well, as far as that. The turn lane, the comment came up, and I don't feel it's warranted, but that's not a valid comment. You got to go through the study. Our engineer, the traffic engineer, spoke with Mr. Damasi. We've taken the counts, we're putting it together. the exhibit I provided for the turn lane was just so everybody was comfortable and understood that it wouldn't require a plan change, that we have the space and the ability to incorporate that. And certainly, if the study warrants it, we'll do it. And we'll continue to work with the city throughout the traffic study there. If there's those couple items, I don't know if Adam, whenever we want to address that or touch on that, I welcome the conversation on it there. And if there's any comments from the Planning Commission or public after their comments, I'd be glad to answer or provide any additional information.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Modig. Just a question for Tony. Tony, at this time, do you know if that radius versus diameter comment from the fire trucks is correct? Is it?
Well,
don't know.
yeah, thank you, Chairman or Vice Chairman. I'm looking right now at the comments directly from our enterprise system, and the fire department clearly says cul-de-sac needs to be 96-foot radius. I don't know if they mistyped that, and it should be 96-foot diameter or a 48-foot radius. I don't want to speak for fire department, but what they wrote is what was transcribed into the report. But we can, but
Yeah,
staff could,
Yeah,
yeah,
well-
staff could certainly go back to fire and see if that is exactly what they meant.
Yeah, Mr. Modig, Mr. Damasio, and Mr. Paul will get back and try to verify that. It's quite a bit of difference, to be honest. And if it is indeed 96-foot radius, we'll have to talk about that when it comes around to Planning Commission questions to see if, what's going to happen to your plan at that point. But we'll pass on that for the moment. We'll wait and see what happens with that comment. Anyway, okay. At this point, I would like to close the meeting to the applicant and open it up to the public. Now, if you would like to speak, you raise your hand or type in a comment with Mr. Paul. He's sort of running the show there. And we will allow you to speak, and please state your name and address. And hopefully we can get it said in 3 minutes or less. So at this point, open to the public, anyone that would wish to speak. Are you seeing any hands there, Adam?
I'm not. I have the full participant list open. It's showing me 14 participants.
Okay.
But I don't see anybody requesting to speak.
Okay, we'll wait a few minutes. It would be nice, Adam, if we could bring up the development plan also for the Planning Commission
Sure.
whenever it comes to their opportunity to perhaps speak and question. So
Sure.
that would be useful, I think.
At this time, I'm still not seeing anybody making any requests. I don't believe
Okay.
seen anything on the regular screen here
We
either.
heard everyone on the preliminary meeting last time. So at this point then, if there are no comments from the public, I will close the meeting to the public, and we will open the meeting to the Planning Commission. And before we call on anyone, Adam, if you could just pull up that for everyone to see the development plan as presented. Okay, there we go. Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Paul. Okay, at this time, Commissioner Locascio. Questions, comments?
I do not have any questions or comments at the time.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Commissioner Habel.
Just looking at the plan, I'm trying to read the radius. It looks like 25 plus 35, so that would be a 50-foot. We're talking about, yeah. Looks like what's on the plan shows a
60-foot.
60-foot, excuse me, yeah. You know, you were my professor in college. You didn't teach me how to add. So just hopefully that can clarify that if that's the issue. No, I have no other comments. I mean, we've seen this plan come through a few times, and I think the progressions have followed the comments and with regard to the engineering of it. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Abel. Commissioner Ricker.
Yes, along with the radius, obviously figuring that out, does Mr. Paul know then, will the 15-foot setback work, or do we have to go with the 20, and can we make that one of our conditions?
It's been recommended as one, and that's because that is what the minimum setback standard is for that size lot. You see that I think all but one sublot here, and I'm looking at it, 44 is at 27.43 feet, meet the standard for that size in the R5 as described in the report. And so we'd be looking for it at the 20-foot setback.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
No further questions.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Ricker. Commissioner Johnston.
Yes. How do you decide on the names of these streets? Who decides that? The developer, or is that in collaboration with the?
The city does not specifically name them. It comes from the development side.
How do you decide? We got to repeat again. How do you decide the names of the avenues? Who does that? The developer?
Yes, the developer proposes them, and then we just ensure that there aren't ones that are already named in that same way in the city,
Okay.
and that there are certain code things that it might conflict with. And so we just kind of look at it from that standpoint. They present them.
Okay.
Any more comments, Mr. Johnston?
The only other, I was curious about the traffic study. How long does it take to get that done? And then at what point is that reviewed with us? Or in terms of being that the development can proceed as scheduled without having any adverse impact on traffic?
If that's a question, I might try to help and answer. I think that Mr. Damasi might be able to help better
What's the
confirm
criteria?
the timeline, but yeah, it would not necessarily need to come back to the planning commission, assuming it didn't result in any types of changes of right of way or alteration to the road network, the street network that you see before you, and didn't have a large impact on the development from that standpoint. And I think that's in part why the applicant gave us that additional item for you to set eyes on, because their point is that they've got enough right of way to allow for the additional deceleration or turn lane should it be warranted. While that still needs to be determined, their suggestion is that enough right of way exists to support it. And so even if we get to where we have to go through additional traffic studies with it, they can help do that without disrupting the street network and the development proposed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Johnston. Ms. Finner, some comments.
Hi, thank you. I just had a quick question for Mr. Modick. He had mentioned that he had gathered some feedback from residents. Were there any significant or notable comments or questions that the residents had?
A lot of the comments that it's the landscaping, the screening. So back at the preliminary time, I had spoken with a few of the neighbors on the left-hand side as you enter. We've made commitments to planting additional trees there. We work with them. down on the property to the west where we're tying with the sanitary and speaking to a few of those neighbors. You know, really the comments hinged around the landscaping, how we provide. They provided a few tree species that I'll work through with our landscape architect and then the city for their approval with the arborist as well. We discussed making sure we had staggered layers of trees. You know, if you put one line in, those trees are typically spaced about 15 feet apart. So until they grow in, there's going to be multiple gaps. So we looked at ensuring that we had a stagger near their property line, but we also recognize because of the topographic change and the way the cul-de-sac comes down, we'll probably need some trees up near our cul-de-sac as well to ensure that those headlights are blocked that may possibly shine towards the second story of the houses to the west of us there. So we want to make sure we incorporate that as well.
Thank you very much.
Any further comments, Ms. Spinner?
Not this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Adam, could you bring up that street cross section? I want to try to see how much driveway is going to be presented with that 15-foot setback. So basically, if someone would assist me here,
20 feet.
Yeah.
So we have the 15-foot setback, then 5 foot to the sidewalk. And what that is your your standard parking stall is usually between 18 to 20 feet deep. So with 20 feet, a vehicle is able to park without blocking the sidewalk with the additional 5 feet between the right of way and the sidewalk. If that's what you were looking for an answer on.
okay, 15 and 5. So it's basically 20 feet. Well, okay, so it fits, but it's tight. Okay. And if it's possible, my comment is whatever can be obtained between 15 and 20 to make that situation perhaps a little less tight, I think would be appropriate. If we can get 17 feet, if we can get 18 feet, if we can get 20 feet, I think it allows that condition to be, you know, I just think it would be a little safer, a little more appropriate. Not that it's undoable the way it is, but it's awfully tight. So, Mr. Modik, if you could work with Mr. Paul on that and see what you can come up with, since, you know, you are in sort of violation and we're trying to work with you on that. So what can we do? You know, what can you do there? Any comments?
My goal is 20 feet. I'm pretty sure we'll be able to make that work. If it's not, it'll be 18 or so. We'll talk to Mr. Paul, but I'm very confident we'll make the 20 feet work. I think we just embarked on the 15-foot design, looking at a different column within the code as far as how we classify this lot felt we're in compliance. It was there on preliminary, but hearing Mr. Paul's request and your comment, it's very valid. We'll get it to 20 feet.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Well, I have no further comments. I think our planning department did a great job in reviewing this and making recommendations to sort of tweak and work with you, Mr. Modik, to get this project, I think, in fairly good shape. We do have to hear from the fire department, maybe through Mr. Damasi, in terms of what's going on with that radius. That could be troublesome, to be honest. You know, they're going to throw another 35, 36 foot addition onto that radius. That's you're going to have to do some struggling there, Mr. Modik.
Yes.
But it is what it is. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to work that out, and Mr. Paul can verify that you're going to start throwing some of those lots a little bit too far into the ravine there, maybe. But give it some thought. We'll get an answer on that and see what's going on. But we'll expect you to conform to comments of our, fire department, etc. Do you have any comments on that, Greg?
Yes, I'd just like to point out, I was just scrambling at one point here, pulling out some paperwork from Sork Trail. I knew we had a couple cul-de-sacs over there, so I figured it's not an absolute, but it's a good guideline. That pavement is approximately 48 feet to the back of curb. The drive lane is 45 feet on that. So at 48 feet, that would put me 96
96.
diameter. So I'm very confident that that was the intent of the fire department, and certainly we'll work with the fire department and Mr. Demasi to make sure we have that right radius in there and it'll work. And I'm confident it will within the plat we have.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. Okay, does anybody else have any comments from the planning commission? Any last minute comments? I think projects come together nicely. And as I said, it's been tweaked well. Nice comments from Mr. Paul. So at this point, I will close the meeting to comments from the planning commission and open it up to if someone would like to make a motion or if they want any further discussion on anything else as a group. Could you, Mr. Paul, focus our view on the proposed motion in the event someone would like to make proposed motion?
Yes, sir. And it'd probably be an apt time to make sure I go back if I'm working kind of backwards. I know Mr. Modak had a couple of specific questions to the list of recommendations made. I want to make sure he's had an opportunity to be heard and responded to on those. We've talked, I think, kind of through most of them, right? I mean, we talked about the fact that he met with residents, and obviously more questions come up when trees start hitting the ground. And yeah, I know that they know the standards, both for drainage, site containment, and landscape screening. And so I agree, comfortable and confident he'll be able to work with us towards getting an appropriate landscape and screening plan together wherever it's necessary. Screening on the pond, I know that came up early as well. I don't know if there was much mounding or things proposed to that, but just to make sure if there were outstanding questions, Greg, I'll be glad to try to hit them specifically in terms of the recommendation list. I know you mentioned the in lieu of fee, and you're right, that was an increase, and it has become more of a standard that we're seeing in Northampton Planning District, particularly I think with a lot of the inability to create usable public open space in these developments and trying to find a better way to contribute to that. And so we do have different outlets for it now, and I included the potential for plan contribution out of that if it's an availability, because we've got now the Public Art Board can consider some of those fees in open space for public beautification and recreational space. And so that has been kept consistent with the same developments we've recently seen at the towns, with Redwood, with Sycamore, and we're requesting the same here. I agree with you as well on the cul-de-sac comment. I feel like it came up in all those other developments we just mentioned. And I think that will be sorted out with the fire department. I'll make sure I look at our code in detail and confirm with them exactly what they were trying to convey and what the expectation is, what we need to let you know. I think that was the rest of the comments you mentioned. I know you addressed the ones that came from the city engineer that you're working with them. And so I'll give you a chance if you need to respond to any of that, or if you want to ask the planning commission any questions on any of those items. I just wanted to make sure I responded to you.
Thank you for responding. I appreciate it. I think you covered anything. I just was unsure about that rec fee, but hearing your explanation, that's completely fine. So I'm good. Thank you very much for the explanation and feedback.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Paul, for that. I think we all needed to hear that, and thank you for your comments, Mr. Modig. If there's no further discussion, I think we've all heard what's moving forward in terms of how to rectify any of the things that are perhaps not ironed down 100%. And with that, I would request if someone would like to make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the ledges of Pine Ridge.
Okay, Sandy, you have to sort of read it the way it is exactly, or as you want it to be on the way it's being shown here. We have to read it into the minutes. Very long.
Sandy, you're muted.
There you go.
Sorry about that. Okay, based on the final subdivision plat documents, the Plain Division
Like she's freezed.
We lost you, Sandy. Oh, boy. I love Zoom. Zoom, Zoom.
of the plat.
Hey,
One, the
Sandy,
street name of Ledges Lane must be changed. The code
Sandy.
calls for all east-west streets to be designated as avenues.
hey, Sandy,
Two, the proposed street shall be public and meet L-50/R local rural street type standards. The proposed sidewalk shall be 5 foot wide and required on both sides of the street, or take the form of an 8 foot wide multi-purpose trail on one side.
you gotta move it up, Adam.
I have mine up. A code compliant trail sidewalk matching the pedestrian improvement of the subdivision on State Road shall be constructed and connected to the sidewalk on Hidden Lakes Lane. Number 4, the build lane / minimum front setback shall be 20 feet to conform with table 1132-2 residential lot and design standards for low density, single family attached dwellings. Number 5, the proposed driveway shall be allowed even if they do not meet the 40-foot separation requirements. 6, that a $1,200 fee in lieu of dedication be paid per dwelling per 1124.05D, which can be used for recreational, open space, off-site public improvement plans and/or public art improvements. 7, all housing finished materials be designed with 50% of front facades that must include natural color, brick veneer, stone, or cast stone. All siding shall be cement fiberboard of premium vinyl siding. Coach garage doors with windows shall be used. 8, heavy landscape buffering is defined in table 1145-26 in section 1145.08 shall be located along State Road and between the detention basin and the Hidden Lakes neighborhood. 9, must meet all other Title II land division requirements. 10, must meet all Chapter 1142 residential neighborhood design standards. 11, must meet all other Chapter 1145 landscape design requirements, including street trees and tree preservation and protection. 12, that a refundable cash landscape / site completion bond payable to the city of an amount no less than 50% of the cost of quantities specified in the plan, which may include replacement of removed trees for additional buffering in compliance with 1145.04 tree preservation and protection. 13, wetland delineation shall be submitted to ACOE with jurisdictional determination issued and mitigation credits paid for if required prior to any grading. 14, confirmation from Summit County that sanitary sewer from this property can be provided and collected by Cuyahoga Falls sewer system. 15, confirmation of easement for sanitary sewer extension to Hidden Hollow Court. 16, declaration of covenants, conditions, restrictions, and reservation of easements shall be provided for city review and approval prior to filing of the final plat with the county. 17, developers shall continue to work with the city to help complete a state road corridor traffic study, including city engineer request to see if right turn lane is warranted for southbound traffic. Do I need to address the radius of the cul-de-sac?
We can make that item 18.
Okay, item 18. No, here we go. I'm winging it. That the radius of the cul-de-sac is confirmed with the fire department to the required radius per code. I don't know. You guys help.
That sounds good, Sandy. Okay, now Sandy, you got blocked out I think the first maybe 2 or 3 items. I don't, Lori, do you remember how far we got? Your sound sort of stopped. So we have to have you reread.
I think it was Just the first paragraph of the motion, the items, I think were all in there.
I think
Okay,
she got to item, I think she kind of can you roll back up, Adam? I'll tell you where it was if I can see it.
I heard
It
every
was around
condition
item 2 or
read.
3. She started, I could hear her.
I think it was just the basic motion, the first paragraph.
Right.
I think that's right.
Yeah, I heard it from one. I heard everything past that.
I didn't, okay.
So the initial paragraph, the beginning.
Yes.
yeah, just read that, Sandy, and I think we've got it.
Okay. Based on the final subdivision plat documents, the planning division finds that project FMP-21-0008 meets the Cuyahoga Falls General Development Code final subdivision plat approval criteria and is recommending approval of the Ledges of Pine Ridge final subdivision plat with the following stipulations required for internal review and confirmation prior to recording of the plat.
Okay, thank you, Sandy, for that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll
I
second.
second.
Mr. Ricker, any discussion on the motion at this point, which has been second? If not, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's 4 voting members saying yay. 5 voting members? We have 5? Oh, yeah, okay, Wes came on. So that is a yes. So the motion carries and the project is approved.
Thank you very much to everyone for your time and consideration this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Modick. We appreciate your involvement here in Cuyahoga Falls. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Monaco, just one thing. I know when Sandy read the paragraph, it was 00008. She had 3 zeros.
Oh,
Yeah.
geez.
I know it's going to be, I know it will be written into the minutes correctly, but I don't think it's an issue. But
Good point. Thank you.
I was gonna vote that she rereads the whole thing. Sorry.
Don't pressure luck.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah,
Thank you, everyone.
And, okay, now at this point, we need to, hopefully everyone has read the minutes, and if we could,
We have a text amendment to do next.
Right.
We-
Yeah.
Yeah, we have another line item.
look at the agenda. I need help there, Mr. Paul. Jack,
Okay.
the
Yeah, if you'd like, I can just move on to this item here if you're ready.
Okay, yes, please.
Okay, so the file number is TXT-21-00012. This is brought forward by staff, former staff member. Guy who knows what he's doing. And the application summary is that the city is proposing a text amendment per section 1113.06 text amendments. And that allows for vehicle wash / detailing in MU3 suburban center districts and MU5 urban center districts. The text amendment involves the addition of conditional use symbols in the MU3 and MU5 columns in table 1131-1 zoning districts and uses. Currently, vehicle wash / detailing are allowed by conditional use in MU4 suburban corridors, C1 general districts, E1 employment districts, and M1 manufacturing districts. So again, this was initiated by staff. It is requested for you to take action on with your recommendation tonight, and I'll read to you a brief summary that was prepared by Mr. Guerra, that the city has received 2 requests to locate vehicle wash detailing facilities in MU5 urban center districts. Presently, vehicle wash detailing facilities are only allowed by conditional use in MU4 suburban corridors, C1 general districts, E1 employment districts, and M1 manufacturing districts. Therefore, instead of rezoning the MU5 properties to MU4 to allow vehicle wash or detailing facilities, it makes common sense to allow the vehicle wash detail facilities without a conditional use permit in MU5 districts. The only actual change to the code involves the addition of conditional use symbols in the MU3 and MU5 columns in table 1131-1 districts and uses. And I'll just speak to that real quick in that, we work out of that table every day. And what's mentioned for you up here in the application summary is to give you context to the fact that other districts that might transition into or out of that in terms of, the land use, the intensity of the land use, they allow for those things and they allow for other things that would seem to be, have more impact than what the car washing or detailing would. And so that's where the commonality of those things, the other districts that do allow it, and the fact that we've got some nonconformities out there that exist in these districts where it doesn't, and we're getting requests to do so, just led to the decision to present it to you for your review and consideration tonight. However, we do still follow the code, and there's specific review criteria for it. And I'll go through those here now for you. The proposed amendment consistent with the purposes of this code listed in chapter 1111 and the authority under the charter. The proposed text amendment is consistent with chapter 1111, and that's our administrative management. And that's why we're telling you staff put it forward and why. Number two, the text amendment consistent with, or will it better implement the general plan or any specific plan or program officially adopted under the guidance of the general plan. If it is not in conformance with the general plan, it shall only be approved on the finding that plan provisions, which it does not conform with, are no longer applicable and relevant due to errors or changed circumstances. And the response to that is that the text amendment is neither inconsistent nor consistent with the Cuyahoga Falls General Plan Code and the Public Art Master Plan. I'm not sure. I think that's just a cut and paste typographical error from a previous report, but use is not as important as the form that it takes. And so it's not in conflict with those goals. The general plan doesn't, give a strong indication as to which districts the car wash detailing facilities should take place in, which they don't. So again, when we see them with other intensity of the same type of use within the same neighboring and adjacent districts, we could accept that this is a reasonable adjustment to make. The text amendment will not compromise the intent or goals of the Cuyahoga Falls General Development Code. And so the findings and recommendations are that planning staff finds that the proposed text amendments are consistent with the intent of the Cuyahoga Falls General Development Plan and Code. And the text amendments will allow vehicle wash / detailing facilities in a zoning district that already allows automotive repair and sales. So there again, that's for your consideration and why you're seeing it here. And then we've provided a sample planning commission motion depending on how you would like to move on it.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Paul. What I'd like to do then is close that presentation to the planning department and open it up to the public for comments. So let's see if anyone would like to discuss this at all from the public.
I see no participants requesting to speak at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Paul. Based on the fact there are no participants, we will close the meeting to the general public, and we will open it up to the Planning Commission for discussions and comments. Commissioner Locascio, any questions, comments? You're on mute, Sandy. There you go.
Yes, I have a question. So forgive me, but does this mean that like there's going to be more car washes, or these are just businesses that just have the ability to wash your car while they're working on your car or detailing it? I'm a little.
There were specific requests for car wash facilities within a district that required the conditional use. And that's not to say that they couldn't do it. As you know, we recently considered a car wash that required a conditional use, and that just led to some more stringent things in terms of the screening, the hours of operation, the types of things that you can help regulate with a little bit more specificity, but it's still permitted. And so this is just suggestive of code that restricts the use to a certain degree in areas where, again, as I mentioned, there are more intense uses of a vehicle-oriented use within those districts that are principally permitted. So if it's already allowed for certain things and it's allowed in the adjacent districts that this one might neighbor, it seemed to make sense to us to simply change. And I'll show you what I'm talking about in terms of the code, because you probably don't look at the table as often as I do, but let's just quickly, and if you're not familiar with our code online, it's got great resources now, and this is one. And so what we're saying that the text amendment involves really isn't anything about the text itself so much as it is identifying within this table right here, within our mixed use districts, where we would suggest that it requires a conditional use, or is it simply an allowed use in the planning area. And as we go down here, when you get to the vehicle wash or detailing, the conditional uses are listed all the way down here. Now, these symbols, for whatever reason, have not populated the way they do in the textbook. It shows like a diamond shape, but this lists where you have to go to for all things that would be conditional and otherwise. And we're looking vehicle wash detailing. You're right here in the MU4, it's a conditional use. Whereas if we go up the table and look at these other districts, it's listed again. See, here's a vehicle repair facility. That can be found in some of those. Let's see. This is actually a service use. But this table is specifically what we're referring to would be changed with the text amendment. We're not like inserting a new section of code or opening it up across the spectrum to say you'd have the same kind of, vehicle wash or care in an R3 neighborhood. So it wouldn't mean more car washes from that standpoint, but it might for the ones that would get through it without a conditional use, I guess.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Commissioner Locascio. Commissioner Habel.
Thanks, Commissioner Monaco. So just to follow up, Adam, it's really more to put that use in alignment with the cross section of the different zoning in terms of similar types of uses that might be allowed of same or greater intensities as you described it.
Yes, I think that's a good way of
Okay.
stating it, that it is in a better alignment with what those things are in the code now in the other districts.
Thank you. No questions other than that.
Thank you, Commissioner Habel. Commissioner Ricker.
I have no questions.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Johnston.
I have no questions.
Thank you, sir. And Ms. Spinner, any comments, questions?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, well, thank you. Let me just say one thing, if I would, Adam. In very simple terms, what improvement does this do for the code? Why do we need to do this? What does it do? Does it simply make it easier for the applicant? Does it allow greater reach? I mean, what? And then the other question is there some way it can harm the citizens by putting a car wash where normally we wouldn't want one? That's my only question. And if you can answer it in any way.
Sure. And I think the first answer, working backwards with the simplest, is no, I don't think in where it's being proposed in terms of the change, the text amendment, no, I don't think it would be detrimental to the citizenry or, the aesthetic of the city or the public health of the community. I don't think that would be true. What it does in terms of an improvement is it helps establish, I think, better consistency and expectations out of the community in terms of why would you be able to have a vehicle detailing or auto repair or service station use over here, but not one that's just a drive-through car wash. And so I think Commissioner Habel had a good comment in terms of the alignment of that. I think it makes it a more simplified process for prospective applicants or developers, business owners, and it makes better sense with the uses that are already laid out in those same districts and nearby ones.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Mhm.
That's a great explanation. Thank you. Any other general comments from anyone? Okay, well, we'll close it to comments from the Planning Commission. And if someone would like to make a motion, we'll leave that in. Adam, if you could bring up the sample motion if one of the commissioners would like to use it.
I'll read it, Commissioner Monaco.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Habel.
The Planning Commission recommends a text amendment to allow vehicle washing / detailing facilities to MU5 urban center districts by adding conditional use only symbols to the vehicle wash / detailing row and the MU5 column in table 1131-1 zoning districts and uses.
Okay, there's a motion by Commissioner Habel. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Let's, Commissioner Johnston is second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we have 5 yays. So that's approval. We have approval of the motion. And thank you for presenting that on behalf of our planning department, Mr. Paul. So that one moves ahead. Our next item on the agenda, I believe, is Lori, meeting minutes. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I can't see the agenda, so I'm not sure the date of those minutes.
January 5.
Okay, there we go. Oh, there it is. Would have bit me. Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting from Tuesday, January 5th, 2021 of the Cuyahoga Falls Planning Commission?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Locascio. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Habel. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Very good. I think that's all the business that we have this evening. Good meeting. Thank everyone for showing up. Mr. Damasio, yes, sir. Comment.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to point out that during the last few minutes, I was able to speak with the fire department, and they confirmed on a previous matter that we talked about that their intent was a 96-foot diameter on that cul-de-sac, not a radius. They apologized for that. It is a stipulation, it sounded like, so I'm sure we'll talk about it at council, but I just wanted to let everybody know that.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Damasio. That helps us out a great deal since we sort of approved that. And we were hoping that was the case. So that's great. Thank you very much. Okay, any other comments from anyone? I want to thank everyone for attending. And now I need a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
I second.
Commissioner Ocasio, who's second?
I did.
Okay, Commissioner Rickard, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.